Everyone, hope we're all doing well. I'm currently on my break, but I just said that I'd come back to my lives because I really wanted to still do these because they're a lot of fun. And also, this topic is one that I'm very familiar with, loneliness and dating. And I'm excited because today I'll be having one of my closest friends who do lives, Jessica, to jump on in just a second, and we're going to be talking all about this topic. So I will bring Jess on right now, and we will get this party started. So let me just bring her on. Bear with me one moment as I do this very quickly, and then we will all be good to go. Beautiful. Hope everyone's doing well today too. Very much looking forward to talking about this. Hello, how are you going, Jessica?
Good, Ken. How are you?
Doing well. It's currently lockdown in Sydney, so we're the
Oh,
most locked down city on the planet at the moment. But in spite of all that, I'm excited to chat with you because these kind of conversations always make me feel good.
good. Well, I am so sorry to hear that you guys are on lockdown. I'm sending you and all of Sydney much love and um, hey guys. Um, it's so great to see you. I adore our time together and our chats.
Me too. And I mean, especially most recently, I'm just celebrating hard all the stuff that you've been getting up to because, man, what an evolution you've gone through over the last few months.
Right? And you've had like a front and center seat in a lot of my journey, and I love that Spirit brought us together when it did, because you were very you were helpful to me, and in ways of, as a professional, you helped me by you would drop some nuggets of wisdom and some of your thoughts and feelings. And then personally, just, I love our, our FaceTimes and our messages. It's helped me, just, to have that companionship. So thank you.
No, my absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed very much the same thing because I feel like I've gone through my own evolution with my forgiveness work lately with my family. So we're doing good things for each other. I'd say like this is a good connection. So we can keep going until our contract sometimes expires. I doubt it will. But
Yeah.
anyway, dating and
Oh,
loneliness. So I remember last
yes.
time when we got onto this conversation, we were kind of talking a bit about this, about how you beautifully said, I remember this, don't date if you're lonely. Like, just don't do it because
Yeah.
it's only going to lead to a lot of problems. And I 100% agree. So, for clarity and discernment, Jessica, I'd love to hear what is your definition of dating out of loneliness?
Ooh, dating out of loneliness is when we have that deep need to have someone in our life because we are bored, depressed, um, just it's that achy need. A lot of us will feel in our heart, we'll feel it in our stomach and our guts. And it's, if the way that people can decipher if they have this is if they're okay being alone. Like, if I was sitting in front of you and I said, "Are you going to be okay if you were alone Friday night and every night from here on out?" That's, if it's like a jarred response of like, "Oh my God, no," then that means there's some loneliness there that needs some tending to.
I would agree. I would agree. I don't know about you, but in my loneliness, way back when, I remember I would feel this ache in my gut sometimes, and it would be this sensation of I really just want to go out and find someone to be with for the night. And I would almost come out of this place of, I think, sexual desire as well as, just not feeling good with a lot of the emotions that were coming up inside of me too. And boredom, I think, is one of those emotions that we feel when we're actually almost suppressing a lot of crap that we haven't dealt with before as well. And I think that, we then turn to entertainment, we turn to avoidance, we turn to whatever we can find to give us a quick fix. And that can often be at the detriment of ourselves long term because
Yep.
we're not really addressing a lot of the stuff that's down inside of us. For example, way back when, I remember back when I was doing Friends with Benefits on a regular basis, my go-to was just to seek out guys to just make me feel better about myself because I didn't
Yep.
want to deal with like the pain that I was in. And I was incredibly lonely. I remember saying to people like, I just don't think I can be this lonely without, you know, my last partner in my life, with,
Yep.
myself. And being by myself was deeply painful. So I would find whatever distraction I could find, from like overworking, seeing friends too many times, seeing multiple guys at a row sometimes, to just like cope
Yep.
with what was going on. And I think that as a consequence, we can be dating out of loneliness without even realizing how lonely we are. And
Yep.
that can really set us up for failure.
It really can. And thank you for being so open and sharing that. And I too remember times that it was seemed like it was a couple times a year that I remember the last time it happened. I was in my bedroom. It was like a Saturday night. I had plans to go out, and I had this almost like primal urge to like
Yes.
go out and like do something. I was gonna go get into something, you know what I mean? And I stopped myself and I was like, ooh, what is happening here? When I checked in with myself, I'm like, uh, what am I seeking? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling very loved right now. I feel a little out of control. I just want, like, it reminds me of that like Johnny Cash song, like hurt. I just wanted to feel some, like I wanted to feel something to like, ugh. So in that moment I had to check myself and like, okay, is going out and like having a one night stand or doing something, is that going to really help me out in the situation? Like, what are you going to feel like tomorrow? What are you going to feel like after? What are you going to feel like on Monday morning? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, no, 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 no. Like, we're just going to go out, have a couple drinks, maybe a couple laughs, enjoy ourselves, and we're taking our ass home. But for me, it was that like I would feel it like bubbling up in me, and it was like it was a little like, oh, you're shaking your head, like you know that feeling.
Carnal. It was like carnal
Carnal,
desire.
yes, exactly. Real quick, I want to say hi to some of my friends that are on. So, Yaya, if you're still on, girl, I love you. SJ Train 23. Thank you for showing up. You are on, I think, about every live I do, and thank you so much for hopping on. And um, we can answer some questions in a little bit if
Of
you want, Ken.
course.
And then Carlos, hi, how are you? Financially Independent 33. I was not at Office Depot today at 2 p.m. I was actually in Boulder today hanging out. So, yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
I also actually, on the note of questions, I saw SJ Train 23 asked a really good question, and I think this relates to the concept you introduced me to, the boardroom of intuition. So,
Yes.
for context, in the relation to this topic, well, my short answer would be I think our intuition gets completely thrown off in this circumstance. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, in this situation, a lot of times the needs or need that we have within us will be really like a toddler throwing a tantrum. It gets all the attention. When a toddler's throwing a tantrum, the world stops and you can't hear anything. It's like, ugh. And so when we have that need, sometimes our intuition gets blocked out. Like our intuition is like sitting there going, ding, 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 like, I got a message for you. So I love that SJ. SJ, what is your first name? Can I call you by your first name? I can call you SJ, but let me know. Um, but to go through that concept, and we've talked about this before on IG Live together, that it's the process of going through each part of yourself and seeing yourself as a board of directors. So what that looks like is your body is a board member, your mind is a board member, your heart is a board member and your intuition is a board member. And so if you envision a boardroom and you envision all those parts sitting around the table, they are all important board members, right? They make the whole company, they make the whole you, and they all have something to say. They all have an opinion, they all have ideas, they all, they have a voice, and we want to hear those voices. So using this technique, you can have that visualization and allow each part of yourself to speak. And that is a great way, as you know, Ken, we've talked about this before, that it is a great way that I use to problem solve with myself and then with my clients.
Mm, I agree, and I've loved that concept and that the decision making, because it's so powerful in many circumstances of our lives when I think we have a good understanding of when something is good for us and when something is not. But I have to admit, in points of loneliness, oh my goodness, it's a mess in the boardroom of intuition. Like, for me, I lose it. Like, I think that in those situations when I'm really quite disconnected from myself, or I'm hurting and, everything's just a mess, like my heart's in pain, my gut's just like, go out there, find someone, make me feel better about myself. Maybe that's my body. But even like, see, like, it's just chaos. I can't even discern like what wants what. And then my brain's trying to like placate everything going on. And so in hindsight, I would probably say that's a great indicator that maybe I just need some time on myself to just really allow these feelings to be processed before even taking action on anything. But in the moment, easier said than done, because it's kind of like you're on a diet and someone has just presented you a giant mud cake and is like, don't eat that because,
There's like
you
alarm
know,
bells going off.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or as you said, and I related hard to this just this example, like, you're out on the town with your mates and you're scanning the room and you're feeling lonely inside yourself. Oh boy, something
Woo.
animal just goes off inside of you and you are just like charging for whatever, is available to you. It's like going to
Yep.
the candy store. You just like eyes go everywhere. So
Yep.
long story short, I think the boredom of intuition can ultimately be disrupted heavily when you're
Yep.
lonely.
Yep. Definitely. And for each person, this boardroom exercise can happen differently. So for me, I actually came up with this when I was out on a walk with my best friend, and she was having problems with a guy, and we're just walking in my favorite park, and I'm like, well, honey, what does your body say about this? And she's like, well, my body wants this dude. And I'm like, what does your heart say about this? And she's like, oh, heck no. Like, this guy is no good. And I'm like, okay, uh, what does your mind say? And like, so I walked her through it while we were walking. And that's something that's beneficial to a lot of people that either like being in their body, people that like to, movement and exercise, and also for people that tend to not want to be in their body. It's really good because, the body is equally as important as all of our other beautiful parts. So we can utilize that by getting grounded. And we get grounded, sometimes we get out of our head, more often than not, we get out of our heads, and then we're like, okay, all right, now that I'm out here walking, I'm like, I can start to process. And like for me, I rarely sit and meditate anymore. I run, and
Mm.
that's my meditation modality.
I love that. I love that. And I want to add on to that by saying that recently I've actually been doing very similar sort of stuff too. Like, for me, I used to meditate predominantly. The first thing I did when I woke up in the morning, I just lie in bed and just guide myself through a guided meditation. But similar to you now, I'm often just thinking, I'm going to walk and meditate at the same time. And maybe that's because I'm in lockdown right now and the idea of staying in my room any longer is just not doing it for me too. But that's neither here nor there. I think the thing is, we need to figure out what feels good to us too. But I think that when we're sort of locked in our head and we're in survival mode because we're not feeling good about ourselves and a whole bunch of things, I just think that it's very hard to tap into this. I've worked with people sometimes where it can be very challenging to rely on those components of the board of directors because we've been grown up in an environment where we haven't had any sense of self because, we were just told what to do, how to act, how to show up. And as a
Yep.
consequence, it's meant that we just follow cues and directions very carefully. And we're not even aware of like what our heart, our body, our
Yep.
intuition has got to say. And whilst this might seem like a tangent to the topic, it's not really because I think sometimes, when we do feel those, when we're in relationships, particularly when we're at our loneliness, at our loneliest within relationships, our mind can be sometimes be the only thing that we pay attention to. And it just causes a whole range of problems for us too. And I'm sure you and I have both experienced this too. Like I've had situations where I've been with people, friends and otherwise, especially family. Oh man, like I've had moments in family where I've been like, I actually feel like I'm submerged in an ocean and I can't breathe, and it's just
Yep.
suffocating.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, and it is that loneliness can be so big, and it does feel like you're just like one big mind, like nothing else exists. And so going back to the board of directors technique, it could be like it's like that watcher, that higher self can step in, like okay, I am drowning right now. Like I can't freaking see straight right now. I'm sitting with my family. Like I can't stand him. I can't stand her. I wish they would shut the heck up. And there's like panic. And within that panic, there's also a dire need for some help, right? For a life preserver. Like, what can I do? And it's like, okay, going back to that visual of the boardroom, it's like the mind is so freaking loud. It's like if the mind was sitting at the table, the mind is like the mean fat guy in the room that's yelling, or like the screaming sad woman that's like, whatever depiction of it, you want to subscribe to is beautiful. And also there's the person in the room that is calling the shots. It's like, okay, are you finished with your ramble, with your rants? Okay, thank you for sharing. Please, let's let the body have a turn. Body, how are you doing? The body's like, I am freaking the fuck out right now because the mind has me super stressed and I can't think straight and my gut is churning, my stomach is tight and my jaw's thank you, body. And so, if we can catch ourselves in those moments so again, I just want to reiterate those moments when our mind is so big and it's so loud and it's so all encompassing, it does want a lifeline. It does want a life preserver. It's yearning for something, and that is something that we can do for ourselves.
I love exactly what you just said about that too, because when you got like that locked jaw, when you're feeling a sense of dread in your gut, that feeling of like something dropping in your stomach as well, like a pit in your gut. And you're right, it's sort of like you just almost like need to take a moment to just, get grounded and just to feel that tension in your body. And that is enough for cue when you connect your mind and your body together to be like, something is horribly wrong and something is just like not okay with this environment that I'm in. What do I need to do to reset this as well? And I think that, for many people who maybe don't have that awareness yet because they're still operating purely out of their mind, then it can be very hard because you're just making decisions based on the external environment. It's like, oh, I don't want
Yep.
to hurt their feelings. I can't break up with them because then what are their parents going to say about me? How am I going to feel when I leave this entire environment and everyone hates me? Well, you know what, mind? You're very well right for thinking those things. However, as the main character of your narrative, what's going to serve you better in the long run? And I think
Yeah.
in loneliness, when it comes to being, with people, when we're not even aware of like, those urges that we have and we're wanting to date with people, or in these relationships where, we are lonely, we start potentially cheating because we need to fill that emotional fix that we're not getting in our relationship. Oh my goodness, it just goes from one shit show to another because
Yep.
we're just not even aware of how disconnected we are within ourselves.
Yeah. Yes. 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 And for a lot of people, that means they have to disrupt that pattern, that they're caught up, and whatever's driving that boat at that time, that's it, what's in motion stays in motion, right? And so we need to interject and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, what do you need right now? Like, what do you need right now? Just like, do you need some peace and quiet? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need a nap? Do you need a freaking hug? Do you need a chicken burrito? I like whatever it is, to like get out. Like, interrupting that pattern is really important. And I would love to segue and talk about the loneliness and how we can take care of it, because really that's what we want, right? The loneliness is a need that's just beckoning to be satisfied and satiated. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir right now with Sydney being in lockdown, and
Oh yeah.
when we were in lockdown, it's like the needs were just like through the roof. And so I really have a lot of compassion for you and everyone there, and for anybody around the world that's just, it doesn't have to be lockdown. It can be maybe you've been just having a rough time. You've been like maybe just stuck in a rut. Maybe you got your heart broken a little bit. Maybe like stuff just is not going your way right now. You have these needs that they need to be addressed, and being very conscious and conscientious about filling those needs in very satisfying, healthy ways. And I am going to contradict myself just a little bit on the healthiness. So remind me to talk about the unhealthiness. But first, let's talk about the
Go
healthiness.
for it.
And really checking in once again. What would satisfy you? What do you
Mm.
need? Really, what, like, so often we get stuck in habits. We get stuck in routines. And so like sometimes it's like, wait a minute, maybe you need to go have lunch on the other side of town today and just get like a fresh vibe, maybe sit in a garden, maybe you need to go get a gym membership, like really like having an honest conversation with yourself about what would do it for you.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And you know what I'd add to that too? Because now I'm about to contradict myself as well. Maybe that's actually just being honest. Like maybe you actually just do want to go out and sleep with someone. And you know what? Amazing. But I think
Amazing.
it's like the real test should be like, and how does that make you feel off the back of that? Because it's kind of like drinking, right? Like I think when we're not feeling good, let's go out. Let's get a drink. Let's just have fun.
Yeah.
Let's, party until the sun comes up in the morning when we're blacked out. And
Yeah.
I don't say that in like a negative. I mean, I say that in terms of yeah, that'll help you feel better in the moment. It's not a condemnation. Like, if you genuinely enjoy doing that, great. But the real question is, and how long can this feel good? Because I know I've gotten to a stage in my life now where I used to be that kind of guy, and now it just exhausts me so much. So I lean into that more, and I'm like, listen, if I'm feeling exhausted, I need to find another way to work through
Yep.
my stuff. And
Yep.
that, interestingly enough, has me coming back to being alone. Like, I know sometimes, like, I actually said recently to myself, I'm not doing friends with benefits again. And I mean, I could probably break that rule at one point in my life, but I feel like for me right now, it's not out of a matter of like, principle. It's more a matter of, honestly, it's just too exhausting for me, because then I have to go through the whole motion of being like, okay, let's set up the boundaries of friends with benefits. If you like someone, let's talk about it. If I like someone, we'll talk about it. And, just to me, it does my head in, which I know might sound a bit strange to people being like, oh, with friends with benefits, it's just anything goes, right? It's like, well, actually, no, because
Mm-mm.
these things have dynamics to them too. And
Yep.
to be honest, I'm just like, look, I don't get my emotional needs met in those dynamics. And that's the
Yep.
thing that I've realized after doing it for so long. So when it comes to loneliness now, I think that, going to that beautiful point you made, so how do we deal with it? And I think it's actually coming back to ourselves. It comes back to ourselves and actually sitting with ourselves. And I mean, at least that's been how it's worked for me. I actually find one of the best ways of working through it sometimes, which might sound strange to many, is actually journaling on it. Like I find if
Mm-hmm.
I feel lonely, it doesn't mean that I am actually lonely. It's just a feeling that needs to be processed through my system. And once
Yep.
that's done, I'm like, I'm fine. I'm
Yep.
good. Life can continue.
Yeah, and emotions are very fluid, and they come and go, and we can choose which ones we keep, believe it or not. And thank you for you brought up what I was going to say about contradicting myself, that sometimes it is a wild night out, and I will allow myself that. I'll be like, we're going out tonight, and it's on. Like, watch out whatever city we're in, because we are coming through. And sometimes it is like, I'm going to do this. And also allow yourself to enjoy it to its fullest. So when you're in it,
Yes.
you're not like, oh gosh, maybe it's like mid sexual act that you're not like, oh, I'm just such a hoe right now, or I shouldn't be doing this, or no, 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 no. Freaking enjoy it. If you're going to do it, do it. Do it right. So, and if you're out, like go, like if you're gonna have a big bowl of pasta and a whole bottle of wine, freaking enjoy every bite. Like really let it nourish you. And then also, like when you're done enjoying it, then say, okay, now we had some fun. That scratched a little itch. What do we really need? Because and that's when we can therapize ourselves. That's when we can keep asking those questions. And so thank you for bringing up that contradictory, because yeah, sometimes, I mean, we need that stuff. We need it.
We need it. Yeah, I love what you said too,
Yes.
and I completely agree. And I think that, we're not poo-pooing people going out, having friends with benefits, acting like a hoe. Like, I mean, I've done that, and you know what? I enjoy it once in a blue moon. I think it's
Yeah.
about recognizing when it's becoming, a band-aid rather than as a one-off. And I think that's a
Yep.
really important distinction to make, which is the fact that
Yep.
these, when we go out, actually, I think it was I don't know if it was Oscar Wilde who said this, but someone said like everything in moderation, including moderation. And I think that as a
Yeah.
as a cure to loneliness, I think you're allowed to go out and live your life and enjoy it. Like, why the hell shouldn't you? But I think
Yep.
it's also good to be very mindful of the fact that loneliness is such a complex thing, and that I think that and I'm really glad we're actually having this conversation because I've never looked at it under this lens before, and I'm loving how human it is too. It's not like we're just being like, don't go out, don't sleep with other people. It's just like, no, just be aware of what the circumstances can bring. Um, and that actually does bring me on to one thing I wanted to say, which is I think it's really good to know when you are lonely, because the consequences of which can be quite severe if you're not aware of it. For example,
Yeah.
I have met many clients and people in my time when they're not feeling secure in themselves, they don't have a support network of close friends who can emotionally validate them. They are very open to emotional disaster, whether that be dating a
Mm.
narcissist, dating someone emotionally unavailable. And I think it's very important to realize that, if you are in a state of loneliness, be very mindful that being with someone for a relationship may be like a disaster in the making.
Disaster. Yeah. A couple of expressions I like to use is a thirsty man in a desert will eventually drink poison, or a starving man will eventually eat out of a dumpster. And that's why it's so important for us to be very in tune with ourselves, and know when we need our needs satisfied and how to do that healthily,
Mm.
even if it could be in an unhealthy way. Um, but yeah, without that awareness of being lonely, we can fall into things that are not right for us, and that's a big thing. I also I have a I want to talk about the friends with benefits too. So
Go for it.
I'm going to start going down a different path, but if you want, we can always go back to the loneliness. So at any point, like we can go back there. But
It's a free show.
it's a free show. So I love that you brought up friends with benefits, because a lot of people ask me how I feel about friends with benefits, and I actually have a way that I categorize relationships. And
Mm.
I personally am not a fan of friends with benefits. So I have a rule that I don't sleep with friends. Okay. I just keep friendships very platonic. And I have another category that I love, and that's the lover category. And the lover is one that you are intimate with, that just thoroughly enjoy, and your heart is not on the line. And it has like a whole protocol around it that like I talk about it on my podcast, and I've been talking about it a lot lately because a lot of people have been interested in these concepts in their life. So the benefit of the lover is that you can get that intimacy and get that companionship in a way that has boundaries and has rules, so your heart is not getting involved. Because with friends, when we sleep with friends, our heart is on the line to some
Mm,
degree with our friends, to some degree, because if this is another thing, if you want to be friends with someone and you're attracted to them, why are we not dating them? Like if
I agree.
they're, you know, so um I don't sleep with friends, but the lovers, that's the avenue, that's the outlet that we can be really intimate with people and keep our heart out of it. And then there's the other category, and that's the potential partner category, that your heart is on the line, that it is somebody that you want to be friends with, it is somebody that you want to have sex with, and so those are the three categories that I like to use, because I feel like for me that keeps things a little clearer. And uh, you know I have a lot of guy friends, and so for me it's about integrity too, because I need to be very careful about how I operate in all those dynamics.
I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it. I think it's a really beautiful way of putting it for so many reasons because you're absolutely right. I think we've got to be very clear and intentional about who we're spending time with because and also where they
Hmm.
sit in our lives. I know that might seem a bit strange for many, but I love how you said like, there's a lover category, there's like a
My
friend,
man just came
there's
home. Just don't mind me.
and there's like the potential, partner category. Well, I think you're absolutely right because, this is a method that obviously works really well for you. And I think that it's so important to be like, where does this person sit in this list of that I've created? And it's not sort of like a hierarchy of like, oh, who gets to spend time with me because I'm pretentious. It's not that at all. It's more of like, where is my energy going? Because if I'm investing so much with the friends with benefits, but not the potential partner, what?
What
Like,
are you what are you what are you doing then? Yeah. And you
exactly.
could be setting yourself up, for disaster, because, like sex always changes things. Always. It can make things
Yes,
better, it can make things worse, but it always changes. And especially in a friend dynamic, it gets murky. It gets murky.
it does. It does. It's so actually, I really resonate with that hard because you're absolutely right. Because I mean, I think it's how ironic that, the very thing that, gave birth to us should be the thing that makes us fall in love with one another. Like, what? Who would have known? I mean,
Right.
I mean, I just think that it's one of those things where kind of like this is a threshold I've done with my clients too. I've said, okay, like if you're dating someone and you want to be, I've had this conversation with someone recently where they said to me, he said, okay, I'm dating a guy that I like, but I wanted to be dating him, but he only said friends with benefits, so I agreed. And my brain went, oh dear,
Mm-hmm.
like
Oh
that's
dear.
that's really problematic on so many
Yeah.
levels. And he was like to me, oh, and I've started thinking about him a little bit, and I'm like, dude, you've already crossed the threshold. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of think of it like drinking, right? There's a point where you're like, okay, if I have one more drink, I'm going to be drunk. And I feel that's the same way with feelings when, you're dating someone, and especially when you're sleeping with them too. I mean, that just
Yep.
accelerates everything so quickly. So
Yep.
I think when you are sleeping with someone continuously, you got to
Mm-hmm.
be mindful of your consumption because it's going to change the dynamic real quickly. And the other thing I'd add to that too, because this has happened to me as well, is that sometimes when I haven't emotionally gotten my needs met from a guy that I've been sleeping with, often I found that that's just deteriorated things very quickly for me, and I'm like, I'm out, because that just brought me back to the realization that it is not friends with benefits that I want, it's a lover. And so I think that, you know, that awareness is so important, because if you don't have that, then you're right. You're setting yourself up for, at the very least, disappointment.
Yeah, you're so right. I love that consumption. That was such a good phrase. I'm gonna have to use that. Um, and yeah, going back to the lovership, like I said, I have a podcast episode. It's called the art of having lovers, and I lay out what that looks like and how to put rules and parameters on it. And really, I talk about consumption in there, and it's so important because, when we are intimate, our body produces chemicals and hormones, and we produce serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, which is the love bonding hormone. And if we are consuming someone, I'm going to keep using your word, if we're consuming someone, we are producing those hormones, and especially with the oxytocin hormone, that is the bonding agent. And if you are over consuming, if you are sleeping with someone too much that's a lover, it's going to get dicey, because what's going to happen is you're going to start to have feelings for someone. And you know and with these categories of friends, lovers, and potential partners, there we need to be very clear in what category each person is in, and we have to remember and sometimes check in, especially when we have these gorgeous good feeling chemicals coursing through our bodies, that we have to stop and check ourselves, and we're like, wait a minute, the reason why this person is in the lover category is because they don't have what it takes to be a potential partner. And so we have to be really clear about where these people go, so we act accordingly, so we don't get ourselves into trouble.
I love that. I completely agree on so many levels with what you just said, because it's very much a situation where and this is particularly exacerbated too when we're lonely, like when our love tank inside of us is dry, bone dry. I'll get into that in a minute, but like when we're not feeling good inside of ourselves, we can then feel very attached to people in that lover category, in that friends with benefits category, whichever you choose to call it, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
When the reality is that, what we're really hankering for is something that we don't have inside of ourselves. So when I define like a love tank, I mean like, I think we all think to a degree, oh, we're kind to ourselves, we love ourselves, we give ourselves, good parenting. But the reality is many of us don't. Like, I think many of us have, been trained to believe that we don't have a good level of self-esteem because we always do things for others. It's rude or selfish to do things that are, meant for us. Anytime we take time off, we feel unproductive. We feel lazy because of voices in our head that tell us that we should be doing something more with ourselves too. And I think even when people use affirmations like, I love myself, they feel guilt. They feel resentment
Yep.
inside of themselves. As a byproduct of
Yep.
that feeling of low self-love, they then go out and have these situations where out of loneliness, they connect with people in that lover category, and then it turns into a disaster story.
Yeah, you are so right. Um, Love is a spectrum. And a lot of people that come to me, that come to us, they're looking for that romantic partner. That's the end all be all. Yet what people need to remember is love comes in many different forms. It can come in the form of spending time with our friends, with our family, with painting, with uh, bowling, our pets. And using your love tank analogy, look at yourself as though you're a love tank, and every one of those moments of love is filling up that tank. And for me, what I do, and then what I do with my clients, is have them do a visual that every time they get a compliment from someone, or a hug, or maybe they have a nice little moment with a stranger in the Whole Foods checkout aisle, or that we envision those like love droplets falling in and filling us up, and that helps us to feel loved and not feel so lonely.
I love that so much. I think you're absolutely right because, and this is going into the psychology of it, you're building self trust, you're building self reliance and responsibility because when you take each of those little baby steps for yourself, like just, going for a shower, meditating if it supports you, or, journaling, whatever you need to do to feel better, you are actively sending a message to the brain, which is when I do this, I feel so much better in my day for doing that. When I choose to take rest, I just feel so good about myself. Granted, you may have to sit through some, feelings and emotions that come up and thoughts that tell you you're being unproductive. But every time you
Yeah.
actually work through those and actually start to process those things and go, that's not true. I actually have got my back. I can look
Yeah.
after myself. I can respect
Yeah.
myself. Even in that language, can you see how I'm not saying I need someone else? Because when you
Yep.
aren't able to constantly have that messaging, the message then becomes, oh, well, I actually need someone to do this for me. And that's when, this is the real deep end of where I'm going with this, we start to look at our partner as a
Yep.
parent and hoping to fulfill a lot of those needs.
Ooh, ooh, Ken. Ooh. You are so right. You are so right. And that's something that you and I talk about with our clients very often is how as adults we can um, look at our childhood and see where our parents were deficient. And then as
Mm-hmm.
adults, how we remedy that is how we really, in essence, need to parent ourselves.
100%.
Yes.
100%. I
Yeah.
know we've talked about attachment a few times in our chats, but I think that's just like one major component of the puzzle. And I mean, I remember recently when I was doing forgiveness work with my family, particularly towards my mum, I saw her as my 100%. Like, I saw her as she will give me everything that I need subconsciously because I would turn to her for everything because I couldn't get that from my dad. And I really did project potential onto partners that I would be with, even friends with benefits. And it would keep me there longer than I actually needed to be because I just couldn't see them for who they were. And so,
Mm.
in many cases, I would just be like, oh, if this person's having a grumpy day, it's just, a phase. It's Mercury in retrograde. It's just a whole bunch of different things. And
Yep.
I I just think that, in so many cases, we take so much of that subconscious resentment, expectation, projection, push it onto someone who we're sleeping with, and we hope that they will somehow fulfill all of our needs without us ever telling them what we need.
Oh, if only it were that easy. Yeah, and you're so right. And there's a part of it that's it's not our fault because our
No.
relationships with our mother and father are the first ones that we've ever experienced, or a caregiver, primary caregiver. Those are the first relationships, and so that set the precedence for how we operate and how we feel about relationships, how we act in relationships, what type of love we give and receive, and all that stuff. And as adults, it's our responsibility to be like, whoa, 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 hold the phone. Like, what's actually going on here? Do I have mommy issues? Do I have daddy issues? What is my attachment style? So often, especially now, it's so fun. We have astrology, attachment styles, love languages, all this fun stuff that we can we could say like, I'm this attachment style and I'm this zodiac sign and la la la. That's all well and good, but a lot of times people will get hung up on it and they will not expand in their capacity to grow and love. They get hung up on it instead of saying, listen, okay, you have an avoidant attachment style. Okay, congratulations, and let's move the fuck on. Like, quit sitting there and saying, making excuses for yourself for being distant and closed off or being anxiously attached or whatever your style is or your zodiac, whatever it is, that you have to call bullshit on yourself at some point and then move forward and make progress so you are a better human being. And, and The finish line is you can have that ideal partner, that ideal relationship, and it'll be healthy and long lasting because you've done the work.
Mic drop.
I'm out. I'm out, Ken.
That was amazing. So are we tuning in until next week? But in all seriousness, though, like, oh man, that was amazing. I loved every word of what you just said. That was so, so good. I want
Thank
to
you.
jump into something that you said, which I thought was brilliant, which was, you can come into your partner being like, I'm a Gemini, I'm an anxious attached style, as if to say, like, can you just like handle my baggage for me? It's like, no, why don't you handle yourself? Like,
Right.
why, like, what is the reason you come to your partner? Like, I don't know if you've seen like dating profiles sometimes where people are like, I'm an INFJ, I'm an anxious attached, my love language is a physical touch and quality time, and I'm also a Gemini cusp with Cancer. It's like, who gives a shit? Like, seriously,
Who gives a shit?
none of that shit matters. Because at the end of the day, that's information for you, not your partner.
That's right. That's right. And, it's important for us to know that about ourselves and our partner. We could say, okay, that's what their tendencies are. And, when it comes to like love language and stuff, it's like, okay, this person prefers to be loved like this, or this is how they give love. It's good to know that stuff. And let's keep this evolution going, ladies and gentlemen. It's like my theme, I've said it to, I don't even know how many times I've been saying it on like a broken record, is let's expand in our capacity to love. Try harder, love harder, dig deeper, like face your shit head on. Get a therapist, talk things out, journal, like take action. Take action. And I want to commend the people that are doing it now, and to the people that are leery about it and are just like, I just want to partner. I just want to be in love. I just want to have this relationship and la la la. Listen, if you want that, the cost of doing business is working on yourself. And when you do that work, you'll get the benefits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other thing too, I love, oh my God, I agree with SJ Train, you're on fire.
Thank you.
Like, I need to get some more Tinder and Wix just to keep this bonfire going because it's so good. But in all seriousness, yes, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Like, you got to work through your shit. You can't expect your partner to be responsible for handling all of that. But by the same token, for the people who do come to us and are like, I'm avoidant, it's like, that's lovely. Now, what do you need me to do to help you through this stage so you don't feel anxious and feel the need to ghost me? Like, learn to talk with people about what
Yes.
you need in these situations. I think it's really interesting. I feel like this is an example that came up recently with one of my clients. So he's seeing a lady who apparently is a psychologist, has done so much self-care work, and is also acting as a coach on the side. And she knows a lot about, her past, having had a narcissistic upbringing and how it's impacted her relationship with men in the past who have been also narcissistic. But interestingly enough, despite all the awareness in the world that she has, she can make a relationship feel like, it's a complete shooting match. Like, her default
Mm-hmm.
is to get control through chaos. So when she discloses things to her partner, being like, oh, I had a difficult upbringing, and he's doing his best to try and communicate in the only way he knows how, her default is then to shout at him for not understanding her. And it's just kind of like, isn't it amazing how we can do so much research? We can have so much awareness of where all of this has come from, yet not be
Yep.
capable of just sitting with ourselves and going, right, that insecurity just came out. I need to shine a light on that shadow and actually just allow myself to work through that pain and that
Yep.
part of me. And I think a large part of that is because the awareness part is easy. It's easy to shine a light onto things and be like, oh, okay,
Yep.
cool. I can now see the connections between childhood and myself. But
Yep.
doing the shadow work, like actually working through those emotions and working through your mind, your body when you have like a fight or flight response, that shit requires work. So much easier to avoid that, and it's so much easier
Yep.
to just create chaos and drama in a relationship.
You are so right. Um, doing that hard work, the shadow work, it's not sexy, and it's the work that we need to do. And speaking about this therapist that you were talking about, yeah, it's great that we have the awareness, and we need to have the guts, we need to have the balls to be able to say, I'm doing something about it. And just, as you said before, it's not about just taking our issues and just being like, okay, you're my partner, deal with it. Like, deal with this shit. It's like, no, that's not how we operate. And um, our partners are really our gurus, and that's something that I've talked about for a long time. And it's in like the ancient yoga text that says, a definition of a guru is someone who shines the light on the darkness. And when we are in intimate relationships and we're opening up our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our souls to someone, it gives somebody else the opportunity to come in and see our darkness and see where we're deficient and see where we're fucking up and see where we have work to do. And then it requires us to have the strength, to have the guts, to have the balls to say, you know what? There's a part of me that's still a little screwed up. There's a part of me that needs a little healing. And it's my responsibility to handle it. I'll take the lead. I can enroll my partner in on the process and say, hey, this is where I could use your support. I could use this from you. It's not just dumping it on our partner and say, listen, you signed up for this. You fucking deal with it. This is now your job. This is your stuff to take on. No, that's not how we do things. And so we must take personal responsibility and get to work.
I love everything you said. I completely agree. And I think it's so much easier, and this is what we often hear too from people is, that's just the way I've always been. It's like, well, that's lovely, but this version of you is
Screw
not
your
working in
way.
this dynamic. It's like, it's like, well, okay, if this is the version that you want to show up as, and you don't want to take responsibility for your shit, that's wonderful. However, that doesn't actually make it a very pleasant space for me. And I value myself too much to actually be a part of this forever. So what can we do to work through it? I'll show up my way. How can you show up to work through your stuff too? Because this ain't making me feel good. And this actually brings me on to something which I actually discussed with a coach a long time ago on a live, where I said, you actually have the capacity to negotiate with your partners. Like, we can't change anyone,
Yes.
but we have the capacity to be like, look, in partnership, I'm looking for this, and if I can't get this, it just makes it very hard for me to continue being in this relationship. I'm not asking you to change. What I'm asking you to do is realize that, it makes it hard if I don't get consistent communication. I need that to
Yep.
feel good and to feel like
Yep.
I'm not an anxious mess. And if they can't give it to you, that's when the beauty of radical acceptance is there. It's like, stop settling
Yeah.
for crumbs or scraps. Be like, this isn't a dynamic that works, and it's okay to let it go. I think far too many
That's
of
right.
us, especially linking this back to loneliness, and I think this is true, like when we're lonely, I think we project so much into these people being like, oh, but they can try, they said they'd change, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, how are you, going back to that board of directors, how are you feeling right now? If
Yep.
this situation has been going on like this repeatedly, I
Yep.
mean, at the end of the day, there's only one thing that's going to happen, which is it's going to continue acting like this unless the dynamic completely changes. And if both participants
Yep.
are not ready to work on that, doomed.
Yeah, and talking to that work, that when you're in a partnership, it's supposed to be a collaboration. It's supposed to be loving. It's supposed to be full of grace and compassion. And in our modern day relationships, how many times do we hear that like marriage sucks? Marriage is hard, and ball and chain, and there's all these like negative terms that we use when really, I mean, let's call bullshit on it. A partnership is supposed to be a beautiful, beautiful thing that we can come together and be like, wow, like I'm I'm calling bullshit on myself, and I also have compassion for myself, and I'm going to ask my partner to be with me in this process where I'm figuring my shit out, and be with me and love me through this, love me in my shitty times, and I'm going to love you in your shitty times. Like, let's actually do what we all are yearning and longing for. Let's really actually love each other. Be kind to each other. Like, this world is shitty enough. I mean, we can sit here all day and talk about all the terrible things in this world. We don't need the shit in our intimate relationships. I want peace in my home. I want a safe place in my partnership. And that's one way we got to do it. We got to expand in our capacity to love. We got to deal with our shit. We got to be kind to each other and help each other and support each other working through issues and figure out how to love each other harder.
100% agree. 100% agree. And learn to love ourselves first. I mean, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
say that, what was that expression that, you need to love yourself before someone can love you? I think that is a
Yeah.
bit of an erroneous line sometimes because it kind of implies that, you have to be fully healed before you can be in partnership. But this is where I think that what I love about what you're saying, Jessica, is too, it's just like take ownership in the relationship as well. It's kind of like you can have
Yes.
shit break. That's okay. Like just
It's
accept
okay.
it. Don't try and
Yeah.
swipe it under the rug, pretend it doesn't exist
Yeah.
because nothing
Don't beat
screws a
your partner up
relationship.
for it.
No. No. And
Yeah.
I think the thing is that we forget how much contempt, resentment, and neglect can lead to the death of a relationship faster than anything else that we know. Like when people say, "Oh, well, he cheated on me," it's like, no, no. What caused the cheating? Like what led up to that? And I'm talking of obviously in a healthy relationship, not one with a narcissist. That's a different story. Like what led to the cheating? I spoke to someone yesterday who said to me, "Oh, look, I'm now having a extramarital affair with someone because the love between me and my husband has just completely evaporated and it's just dried up." And on one hand, many people will be quite shocked and ashamed to hear about that story. And I'm like, fair enough. And I think that for me, as a coach in this sort of situation, I'm like, okay, well, this is the rock bottom of your relationship. Doesn't mean it's over, but it does
Yeah.
mean this iteration of it is done. And something new has to come out of this experience where both of you now need to actually do the work in order for whatever it is to survive. And to be honest, even for our future relationship too, because whatever you don't resolve here just comes along with you to the next relationship as well. And I think
Yeah.
if you do continue to date, well, loneliness is a part of that too. I mean, you're still not dating for yourself. You're dating because you don't feel good and you don't want to deal with your shit.
That's right. That's right. I also want to speak to the learning the lessons and being completely healed prior to entering relationships. I had a therapist tell me I was being such a good little patient in her office, and I'm like, I just want to be the best version of me and be fully healed so I can enter a relationship and have an amazing relationship. And she's like, Jessica, like you get an A+ for this, and there's going to be things that you're going to learn within a relationship. And so things will go dormant. We won't see things. And I was talking about this earlier that our partner is our guru. They go in, they can see our weaknesses, they push our buttons, knowingly or unknowingly. And that's an opportunity for us to grow and expand as spiritual human beings. And so heal. My advice to everyone is like heal as much as you can. Keep doing the work, keep digging, keep working. And know that when you get into a relationship, there's going to be more work that needs to be done. And that's just the name of the game, and that is okay. And that's what we are here to do, is to evolve as spiritual beings. So let's do it kindly and lovingly, and have a good time doing it.
100%. 100%. And I think to round off what you just said too is I think I agree with your therapist, and she's absolutely right. Classic high achievers, aren't we? Like wanting to be fully healed prior to being in a relationship. Yeah.
I mean, I've been called out many a times too.
I hear you on that. And you know what though? Like I think you're so right. Like I think we need to actually realize that when we go into a relationship, some shit that we've never seen is just going to come out and trigger us, and I think we have to go in with a bit of grace, both parties, and be
Yeah.
like, oh, that just came out of
Oh
my
boy.
system. Okay, now what am I going to do about it? Not what are
Yep.
they going to do about it? What am I going to
True.
do about it? And I
Yep.
think that's the clear distinction. I mean, for instance,
Yeah.
great example that was brought up in the book How to Do the Work by the holistic psychologist. She was saying how for her and her partner, every time the dishes weren't done, she would lose it because it always brought her back to childhood because she always felt like she wasn't seen wasn't
Yeah.
heard. And so for her, she had to really get into her body and be like, right, this isn't about me. I'm not being
Yeah.
attacked. My partner has just, forgotten the dishes. It's okay. I just need to let them know that this isn't something that upsets me. And I also need to remember this isn't an attack on my being. This is something that I
Yep.
need to work through. So I use it as an example to say, like, it's very 50-50. But I
Yep.
think we all would like to think that ideally, in my relationship, there'd be no drama. In my relationship, it'll all be conflict free. It's like if you've got a relationship
Yep.
that's conflict free, there's something wrong with that relationship because I guarantee
There's always,
that's not
always
authentic.
conflict. Yeah. Yeah, and I need to get going because my handsome man is standing in the kitchen getting dinner ready. But I
Oh,
just I know. Um, um, with some of my clients who are who are very just don't have a good relationship with themselves when they're like, I just want to be in a partnership. I just want to find my person. And I'm like, honey, a newsflash for you, if you are not right now and you get into a partnership thinking that you are going to be okay, you are in for a hell of a ride. Because even people who have their shit together, they get in a partnership, there's new things that will come up. And it's like it's a whole new ball game that you have to figure out how to navigate. And people think it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, but I mean, it can be, and there's always going to be conflict. And it's just a matter of how we peacefully navigate that conflict and have good conflict resolution.
I agree. And the last thing I'll say to respect your dinner is
Thank you.
it's also about how much conflict am I willing to accept to be part of this relationship.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Because it might be too much.
And at the end of the day,
Might be just
that's
right.
up to each and every one of us to discern for ourselves.
That's right. Ken, always a pleasure. This was so great spending time with you. And thank you to everyone who showed up for our live today. And a shout out to SJ Train 23. Thank you for bringing up the board of directors, that technique of mine that I love. And I really appreciate that. You guys remember that. And hopefully you guys are using it too.
It's a very powerful mind body technique. I think it's really, really beautiful. Jessica, as always, I love our lives. They're so much fun. And I loved how off the track this was too, because it was just so nice to be spontaneous.
It
So
was.
thank you for taking us there. It was so much fun. All right. Thank you to my audience too for showing up. And yeah, I'm actually on a holiday for the rest of the month because I'm doing hashtag self-care for me. But
Yes. Don't be a
outside of
stranger.
working, yeah, I won't be. But outside of looking after my clients, that's pretty much me for social media for a bit. But other than that, though, Jessica, I'll let you go enjoy your dinner and be with your man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And same time next month.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, and sending my love to you and to Sydney. I hope you guys come out of lockdown soon, and thank you again to everyone who showed up today.
Likewise. See you later, Jessica.
Bye.